entertainment, current events, and Hollywood. Don't miss Creator to Creators, hosted by the filmmaker Meosha Bean, known for the Shudder hit documentary Horror Noir and the acclaimed film Anatomy of an Anti-Hero, Redemption. This show features interviews with filmmakers and creatives from around the globe. Join the fun with guest celebrities and gain valuable insights. Subscribe now and follow Creator to Creators.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Creators to Creators today. Today we have a special guest.
Hi, I'm Sean Boynes from the band Maverick Smith.
Hello, welcome. I'm so happy to talk to you, to chat about music and horror, how they intertwine. But first, I love going back to the beginning. I always say the beginning kind of charts our trajectory in life, our little habits along the way that we pick up when we're kids, and they kind of somehow follow us into our adulthood. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. What was that like? And kind of how did you find your way into doing the things you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm the son of a West Virginia coal miner, and I would say
Nice.
that had a lot of influence in my life from what I do and how I view life overall. Grew up in a very musical family. I had a conversation with the gentleman who was on our album, Paul Santo. And as we were working together, he said, I'm still trying to dig your vibe. It's gloomy choruses or gloomy intros and really cheery choruses. And I said, I think it's because my dad was into Wilson Pickett and James Brown, and my mom loved Jim Croce and Chris Christopherson. So I think I remember having, records, 8-track players, cassettes around the house forever. And I come from a Scottish background, so lots of family members playing bagpipes, believe it or not. So those are things I think that shaped how I moved forward in life overall. But a good childhood. We never needed for anything, and I'm glad I grew up where I did. It kind of set me up for how life kind of exists for real.
No, that's awesome. I love that. And love that you had also supportive family, that, doing the things you love to do. I think that's everything, I think if my family wasn't supportive of what my dreams growing up, I don't think I would have, became a filmmaker or did anything creatively in the arts. I feel like it's so important to have that foundation.
Yeah, it creates a fearlessness right when you need it the most, I think. My grandmother never stopped, if I can say it that way, saying that you can do whatever you put your mind to, and I find that to be very true.
Absolutely. So, okay, what is that like? So you like to do music. How do you get into it? Do you go to school? Like, did you just meet some people? Did you start a band? Like, how does that go? How does that work?
The weird pathway into it, actually. So I'm actually a trained dentist anesthesiologist. So
Oh,
I went
wow.
to dental school and then went and did anesthesia after dental school, actually, and worked labor and delivery for quite some time. But when I was a resident, I started having heart issues and had an undiagnosed something called an aortal septal defect, which most people find when you're kids, but mine was just very slight. So found myself in intensive care for about 3 weeks and had always wanted to pick the guitar up. My middle brother, Chris, had been playing and played in bands. And so I was like, hey, I'm gonna go get a guitar and an amp and start playing. And did, and just ended up having a decent knack for it, and found myself wanting to write my own stuff as opposed to learning everybody else's. And so we formed a band, this was in the early 2000s, called Lowlander, and had mediocre success. We were able to tour and go out on the road
Wow.
and sell enough CDs at the time to be able to kind of make it work. And I think it was the joy of being able to create, and then really what kept me in it is I remember we had one song that got picked up on local radio. We were doing a regular gig, a couple hundred people maybe, but there was this group of maybe 8 women that were sitting over to stage left, and we got into the song, and I remember them closing their eyes as tight as possible and singing that song out loud. And
Aw.
after that, it was kind of, it's all downhill from there, as they say, because that fix you can't really get anywhere else.
Yeah, I can't imagine, right? Like just that that feeling that you make someone feel so, I don't know, you just go somewhere through music. It's pretty
Well,
cool.
it's the beauty and fear of art, right? It's the when you produce the art, you're hoping the people feel something, whether good or bad. So that's the good part. The fear part is that they don't feel anything and they're indifferent to it, and it's the meh. So I think I live in the fear of meh when I'm putting stuff out, you know?
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. That's interesting. Like have you ever like I think you'd have to have a bit of obviously you said it creates fearlessness, like like getting on stage, performing, like you said, having that like the people that don't resonate with your with your music, and how do you go into it? Have you had like kind of negative feedback, and how did it make you
Oh,
feel?
yeah, I remember we did 3 albums. I think it was the second or the third. And we had gotten this review that the name of the band was Lowlanders. So of course the critic made a play on that, saying that that was how,
Oh,
yeah, this tells you what their standards are. And then at the end said that we were like a drunk Green Day.
oh
So
no.
yeah, well, it hurts, because you're so vulnerable when you're actually putting a piece of yourself out there. But what we ended up doing was we ended up using that to advertise shows. Come see Drunk Green Day, and that ended up working out pretty well for us of turning it back around. Um, it's
Okay.
interesting now because of social media, and I've been away for about 10 years and coming back in. So, kind of getting indoctrinated into the trolls and the things like that has been pretty interesting. Um, but like I go back to, well, I'm making them feel something. It's when there's a reason they're responding the way that they are. How do I
Oh,
deal with it? I try to stay as positive as I can. Does
that's
it hurt
great.
at times? Yeah, sure. You want everybody to love, and I think when you're putting yourself out and you have such a vulnerability, there is a desire to kind of be liked and loved because
Mm,
it's when you're an artist, and I think you can appreciate this. It's not just this thing; it's actually a piece of you. So
hmm.
you kind of have that fear of rejection because it's not just rejecting the art or the album or the movie. It's kind of feels like they're rejecting you in a sense. So
Mm,
being older now, I don't know what it may be, but it doesn't bother me as much at this
that's
point. I
good.
kind of remember it just takes all kinds to make the world go round.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's get into your music, the band Maverick. I mean, it's so cool. Like I looked at even the visuals too. I went to your YouTube channel, and I just literally thought I felt like immediate like Twilight Zone vibes, very just like really just very nostalgic feeling. I felt like those kind of it just how you intertwine with the music. It was so cool. Like, was that something like that was inspired by that as well? Like, were you aiming kind of for that kind of feel visually as well?
Yeah, this is the first album where I was the producer and writer, although I had some other
Nice.
co-writers and performers, and I had other performers. But this is the one where I had the most control, and it was really
Nice.
set out to make the album I always wanted to, down to the album cover. So I'm a huge horror movie fan, and I grew up in the Pittsburgh area. So there's two things you get indoctrinated on here. One is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the second is George A. Romero zombie films. So
Yeah.
it's ingrained in your blood. You can't escape it. So I grew up on those horror movies and a love for them and an understanding for their impact and what they are. And so with the album, it was an interesting concept because I really wanted to create something that was somewhat different. You say nostalgic. we really did everything live. So no auto
Wow.
tune, no computer gimmicks, which was a little more difficult than I thought, and a risk because
Amazing.
people like their overproduced music these days, which is fine. I
It's
understand.
true.
But we didn't go past 1985 with the way that we recorded it, which
Nice.
was very cool. But the other thing was to bring these 22 other artists in, who many of them are known and play in some very big bands, to give them the opportunity to do a creative process where they didn't have to be them. So it's kind of this other universe. So if you look at the album cover, that's actually my downtown, my hometown downtown.
Wow.
We just let monsters take it over. And so everybody, if you look at the cover, everybody kind of has their own persona. And so
Yeah.
it was kind of in this alternate universe to be able to come in. And I think the hook, the reason we were able to get some of the folks that we could, was because they were interested in not having their creative process computerized. And I'm not saying that's a negative thing.
Hmm.
Every generation likes to hear music the way that they want to, but it was very purposeful and specific to try to not bring all the computer gimmicks in and allow for just a pure process and sample to come out.
Yeah. What was your creative process like when writing Spook Show?
So for Spookshow specifically, my co-writer and I were sitting down, and he had come up with this one little riff, and I immediately thought of Chilly Billy, which was an old horror movie.
Oh yeah.
I think some of them are still around, but which I grew up on, and it kind of had that vibe. And I was like, hey, let's write a song that's sort of an homage to all of these horror show hosts. And so we literally got on YouTube. I put on Night of the Living Dead with Chili Billy. You can get that on
Yes.
YouTube. So we put that on mute in the background and sat down and just hammered that song out. And so that was the writing process. And then as we went in to implement and produce it, it's just layered in. The whole album, including the song, really was, we didn't use a click track. So there's drift, which some people, especially classic musicians that were on the album, got frustrated with at times. And we also didn't use charts. We didn't use music sheets.
Wow.
It was conversations with the artist. It was about, what bands did you like growing up, and what are you into? And
Hmm.
we kind of made the album based off of every particular artist that's on those particular tracks, what they liked and what they were into and what got them into music. And that
Yeah.
does include I didn't mean to disparage the classical musicians, the bagpipers and the orchestra in any way, shape, or form, because even they, like I think about Serge, who did the accordion on one song. He does classical music, and so does
Love it.
Lauren McDougall. But it was cool because you find out they were into bands like the Ramones or the Clash or Rush, but just because they make a living at doing classical music, this was an opportunity for them. So it was conversations about sounds and bands that we liked that kind of fed into how it was produced.
Yeah, like I'm still like just it's really wild that I can't imagine what that looks like. Sitting just being a fly on the wall, I think that would be so cool just to see the process of how, 22 musicians, right, featured on your album is absolutely like daunting, but also very cool. You don't really see that many, you know, people featured on an album like that. And I think that's kind of cool that you executed it, but also very fun. And like how their influences, all kind of came together to create the overall vibe to get like Friends and Imperfections.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, like, I wonder what that would just to see that visually just would be interesting.
It was actually very cool. The only disagreement that I can remember, and this was with my co-producer Dan Bozak, who's a wonderful producer and bass player actually, and one of the drummers, we had my main drummer, which is my best friend, and we go
Aw.
way back. Um, they did not want to put the accordion on this song through this tonight, and they thought I was crazy, and like I said, this was the album I always wanted to make. So as we were building the songs, it was whatever went into my crazy head, to be quite truthful. And it ended up, that's our number one single right now. It's doing quite well.
Nice.
I think we're looking at, it's been out a week. We're at 30,000 streams across 3 platforms just on that
Awesome.
song. Kiss
Awesome.
FM and iHeartRadio has picked it up. So it's worked, but this tells you relationship, because most of these folks are my friends. That's the name of the album. The
Yeah.
best I could get out of Dan was, well, it does work, but on paper it shouldn't have. And I said, Dan, I'll take that as the best compliment. But it really was just, if there was some crazy idea, we tried it out and it
I
just
love
seemed to
it.
fit for whatever reason.
No, it's great. I love that. I love that also the horror and the music connection. Like what do you think is like about the horror genre that resonates so strongly with the rock music? And like and how do you see that connection kind of reflecting in Spookshow?
Yeah, so I think they've always been intertwined. There is a risk and a vulnerability that comes with both of those types of music, the frequencies that you may experience as a viewer or as a listener, that sort of bring them both together in a really formidable way. Um, uh, I think it can be exhilarating, it can be sad, it can be threatening.
Mhm.
And I think rock music in its design, although, it's based in Bach and some of those classical musicians, but if you look, the designs between the two are really to make you feel the extremes. And you can
Mm,
do that with horror. It's not there to make you laugh and to make you forget. It's not there to make you sad and make you self-respective. It's there to make you feel in the moment. And I
mm,
think that's where those connections are at. And the designs of the simplicity of rock music, I think horror does have a lot of those simplistic tones, especially we talked about George Romero. I mean, it's right in your
mhm.
face, right? You think about Night of the
Yeah.
Living Dead. It's really talking about civil rights. It's right in your face. Dawn of the Dead, it's commercialism right in your face.
Yeah.
Government with his next movie. And so I think if anything else between horror and rock is, it's just going to be right in your face, you know?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that it's in your face and like unapologetic, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. Something about that. It's interesting you said 9/11 Dead. I actually I believe if I'm not mistaken, is that was maybe I don't really remember his name, but I remember doing a documentary and um there were so many horror legends and in this documentary called Horror Noir. It's on Shutter, it's on AMC, and it's one of my biggest projects to this day because you had Tony Todd, you had Keith David from The Thing, you have all these like older, just like old school horror characters, and you're just thinking like, what is life? It's so cool to like work with these kind of horror icons. But yeah, Night of the Living Dead and all of these old school, like it's just something different. It was really scary, but it was all like you said, it had like themes that, like you said, racial, like they actually had things that were like racism. That's scary. But the way they showed that through monsters, and it was like, oh, that's kind of cool to tackle it in that way versus like, you know, um someone getting hung or something, like those kind of extremes, but it just do it in a like more of a tasteful way. Like, I don't know. Nowadays, it's just you don't have that. It's like more in
Yeah,
your face.
well, it's action today. I think where some of the older filmmakers, especially George Romero and Night of the
Yeah,
Living Dead, which is the original actor was Dwayne Jones, and then Tony
that's it.
Todd played in the
Tony
remake,
Todd.
and Tony Todd was in the '91 remake that
That's
Tom
right.
Savini did. It doesn't come off as pretentious, and I think it
Right.
allows you to maybe feel it and view it in a different way. It's not preachy. I think
Yeah.
if today, I think filmmakers really struggle if they are trying to do some sort of pop culture or societal influence, they tend to hit you so over the head with it that,
Yeah.
sure, the people that believe it already are probably going to say, yeah, great, great job. But I think the older filmmakers like the John Carpenters, the George
Yeah.
Romeros, Sam Raimi when he was younger, I think they were trying to get what I would call the casual fan to maybe
Mm-hmm.
express people that maybe don't have those same views, but maybe can see it in a different way. I don't know why. I don't know why that changed. I
Yeah.
don't, it's not, is it art then if they're just entertaining
Mm.
you? I don't know. Because to me, to be art, you have to feel something. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I wish I had an easier answer for you, but that's my perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I know, I like that. I like that perspective, but I don't know why it changed either. But I find it very interesting. But I completely agree with you. Filmmakers today are, like you said, hit you over the head. It's more, it's like so in your face that it kind of turns you off to the whole thing. You're
Yeah.
just like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Um, I try to stay away from those topics, but but if I do talk about it, I do it more in, I mean, I personally just think that there's other things that are interesting to talk about that the world is actually going through, like, hunger, like food, people don't have food, poverty. These are like serious issues.
They
um,
are.
so I don't know. I have a fun question, and there's no wrong answer, but the three levels of influence: money, power, and respect. And if you could choose only one of those things, which one would you choose and why?
That's a great question. Respect. This is an easy answer for me. I've seen money and power, and I'm afraid of it. It doesn't
Mm,
seem to lead you anywhere good spiritually. It doesn't seem to make you a better person. In fact, it seems to drive you to the opposite way. Um, I live in a cabin in the woods in West Virginia. So to me,
yeah.
I think respect. I did write one song once though that maybe just to be candid, it said, I want to be the king, but the king that you all ignore. I think
Hmm.
there is that piece to it. I wish we didn't need money as much as we do, and I wish power didn't corrupt as much. Um, but I would much rather have respect, as long as it comes from family and friends and people that are important to me. I think that's how I would answer that. It's a good question. I'm so tired of money and power at this point in my life.
No, yeah, at some point, right? It's like you get, I mean, yeah, money's great, but yeah, like you said, you can't take it with you. So it's
No, you
like,
cannot.
and I find it very interesting when like people from other countries, when I traveled a lot and I went to see just how different people live, and some people are just very happy just being with family and just life, not money or the things, material things. And life it's more than money. It's great that you can do those things with it, but like, I don't know, there's some people that don't have money and are the happiest people. So
It makes things more and more complicated. What is it? Mo money, mo problems. I think that holds true today as it did 20 years ago.
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, you mentioned like the raw, right? The imperfect, the in like the beauty of live music, right? And how, well, actually, can you kind of more elaborate on that? Like what that means to you as an artist, and how does it influence your recording in the, like, this album? Because I don't think we get enough of that even now, like today. Like you said, it's just everybody's using AI, fast, quick stuff. Everything is very just different. It's not raw. It's not, like what you're doing with this album, what you did with this album. Yeah, like I feel like it's so important, like you said, it because I feel like nowadays music is so disconnected. I don't think people actually really feel anything anymore. So you did that.
Yeah, well, I hope we did. We definitely recorded it that way. Yeah, I mean, there was several meetings in the title, and to include imperfections in it, which is one, it's okay to hit a quote unquote bad news note. These are really well-trained and well-established musicians. And so a bad note isn't something that's going to sound bad. It's going to fit, but it's something that maybe wasn't structurally supposed to be there. And so that's an imperfection. And they hit that note because we were creating a process where, one, we put it in the title and they knew it. So it eases some of that process down to say, hey, just come in and play. Let's just see how everything goes. And it's okay if everything doesn't match up. I think the other piece I feel is with, whether it's AI or even just the standard Pro Tools now, where you hit a button and it cleans everything up. And then auto tune, it sanitizes sort of the intention of the music, that piece isn't there. It kind of I'm a big fan of the Ramones, and they came in the late 70s, and you had bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Rush and Yes and all that yacht rock, which I like. I'm not any fans out there of those bands. I do appreciate them and listen to them. But it got to the point where we were getting 15-minute guitar solos, and we were getting this bloviated sort of process where these virtuosos were spending so much time. And then it created a vacuum where the Ramones came in, did 2.5 minutes of a song, no guitar solo, and it was nothing but pure energy.
Wow.
And I think it was trying to capture where that pure energy came in. I think just thinking in it from sort of the business of music piece too, and I shared my one critic story, is we wanted to give fodder to the critics, right? They can use that in a negative way, or they can use that in a positive way. And then the other pieces, we're tied into with the album, a nonprofit that really focuses on those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And really understanding the population, that they're gifts from the universe or God or what you believe. And they see the world differently, but some reason society sees them as imperfect when they're probably the farthest thing from that. And so I think it was all of those things that went in, trying to just make people feel comfortable about the process, trying to be honest that people were going to feel one way or the other about it, and then making sure we were tied into the honesty of the reason we were doing it.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's cool. I love that. And I appreciate like music, like what you did, the heart and the soul that you put into it. It's just really nice and refreshing, because like I said, today music is just it's so fleeting. It's just like new, it's like just a revolving door. There's just new music all the time. So I guess that's why music is like that, because it's like I mean, I can't keep up. I really can't. The new music and artists that come out every day, it's absolutely insane. It's mind-blowing.
It's hard. It's content creation. So having been out for 10 years and coming back in, there's already pressure to say, okay, when's the next piece coming out?
Yeah.
When are you going to do the next thing? Where's your TikToks? Where's your reels? Where are all of those things that you have to continue to produce, because the consumption is also great. My hope is that people will sit down top to bottom and listen to the album. But the realist in me knows that this is a singles culture, and you get on playlists and you don't actually know what's going to hit, and there's less control.
Yeah.
But that's how people want to engage in it. So you can't, the train's already left the station on that. So trying not to be too old fashioned in my approach with that.
No, I totally get that. In this journey of the creative world that we're in, and there's always ups and downs, there's uncertainties. How do you stay balanced, when things kind of get overwhelming, when you're not inspired to create? Like, what do you do?
Sometimes I panic. I rely on friends, and I take breaks.
That's good.
Whatever it may be, whatever I'm kind of feeling in the mood for. Maybe it's going out with friends, grabbing a couple drinks and a meal, visiting family, or just hanging out on my deck and seeing how nature is hanging out. So I try to be really cognizant of the breaks that I need. I don't do it enough, so I don't want to be in my glass house. I don't want to be in my glass house here. I struggle with work-life balance.
Same.
I try. I am addicted to work, so it's hard for me to shut it off. But I do try to listen to my body,
Yeah.
and what it's trying to tell me. So I can put my feet up in my recliner and watch YouTube and just chill out for a little while if I need to. But yeah, it's tough. It's a tough thing for me. So I don't think I have the best answer, or nor should anybody follow my advice. I try to get better at it each day, but it is a
Same.
struggle.
It's a struggle. Like you said, it's one of those things like it's crazy how this machine this creative field that we're in kind of almost creates a machine out of you. Like
Yeah.
I've been doing it for so long. It's like this is like all I know. So it's like, and if I'm not doing the work, I feel like I'm not like I just can't seem like to stop, or I can't rest. And I like have to make myself like I like go on breaks and like shut off social media because it is so much like all the time. And sometimes I can, I'm like, this is not healthy. Not for my mental. I think it's so important. But I just went somewhere in like nature recently, and I got a massage and I got a break, and I saw bears in the mountains. I was like, yeah. But then I was also like, I gotta get back to work.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. Nature does seem to remedy me a lot, but I think in the creative realm, your mind, right? It's your mind, and it for me, it's really hard to get it to stop. Like, you can be in nature and relaxing and see something, and an idea pops in, and then you love that idea, and then you're like, I want to do something with this idea. So I think maybe there's a piece of that in it as well, that it's hard to shut the brain off completely when that's the main mechanism of how you make a living.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What advice would you give to somebody that wants to get into the music industry?
One, make sure you have real friends. I think that's what I've learned over the last year and a half of doing the album, is that I was able to put together a really good friend group of honest and good people. And they're hard to find in the business. Pay attention, learn from life lessons. You're going to get ripped off. You're going to get screwed over. You're going to trust people that you shouldn't have, and it's going to hurt whenever they don't. And make sure you don't forget. Those are kind of the heavy ones. The easy ones are, make sure whatever it is that you're doing, that you actually love to do it. And if you find yourself burning out on it, be honest with yourself about it, because it's a hard road to kind of move forward. I know a lot of people say practice every day, and if you're doing an instrument, those things are important, but you'll find that those things kind of come together in and of themselves if you're taking care of everything that goes around it. And then I guess the last piece is, at least in music, make the album or the music you want to hear. I made that mistake the first go around. We had a decent hit, and I listened to the A&R people and tried to make the music they thought would sell, and I didn't stay true to kind of the music that I wanted to hear. And so that's the other piece, is it's easy, even if you get a smidgen of success, to kind of have that self-doubt, and you may rely on other people a little bit too much. You maybe don't have your best interest in mind, but where their financial gain may be.
I love that. That's great advice. Where can people find you on social media?
So we're everywhere at this point. I'll give my marketing person, Morgan, a shout out. She came up with the line, let's just say it's everywhere where people crank their music. So you can get us anywhere. Our website's www.mavericksmithband.com. You can look for Maverick Smith on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of those regular pieces, and we're available on every streaming service. I would ask if you're interested in vinyl, CDs, things like that, t-shirts. All of our merch is being sold exclusively through Harmony Health Foundation. So www.harmonyhealthfoundation, just how it sounds, .org. And all the proceeds that come from the merchandise and the physical media sales go to benefit to bring new technologies in for those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And you can go to our website and it'll say you can donate. You just like the old public broadcasting system, you donate, you get a gift of the merchandise. So asking people if that's what they want, check that out. And it is tax deductible too. So there's an added
Nice.
bonus.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow, that's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure to be here, and the feeling is very mutual. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening. And always remember to live, love, laugh. We'll see you guys next time.